Hey Quade, Hannah, Chad, I'm going to show you this practice method. Kind of gives you an idea for fly casting. This might help you. So what I've got here is just a limber piece of sapling and then some yarn, and that's to simulate this. Well, it's the same physics involved, but instead of just the air, I'm using the tarp as resistance for the drag, so you can see how it works. It slows it down a little bit, so it's the same action, it's just slow motion. So the first thing you want to do when you're casting, you've got to have at least 2 rod lengths of line out to get enough loading on the rod to make it work. So 25 feet is a good number. Too short or too long makes it hard. Next thing you want to do is watch the line when I just do the rod in an arc. The line tends to spread out all across. What you want to do is get the line going in a straight line, and you accelerate it and then just stop. So you accelerate and then stop. Now I've got a little bit of wind here, so that's you just accelerate and then stop. And sometimes you'll get caught up. Stop that. Is the loaded rod exercise. And you can do this with the regular fly line. Have someone hold the fly in their hands. You could cut the hook off or just have them hold it so that when the hook pulls out, it doesn't catch in their hand. I'm gonna go over here because we've got a wind coming this way, and so I'll do it this direction. But with the regular fly rod, a 25 feet line out, bend the rod and stop that. All right, so now this costs probably 30 cents, but you can spend $50 on a practice rod, but you don't need it. Physics are the same. So this exercise is the loading the rod exercise. And you can do this with a full fly rod, or you can do it with this practice rod. And a full fly rod, have 25 feet of line out, bend the rod kind of at an angle like you're going to end your cast, and then the person just lets go and you say let go. And you'll notice that if the rod is loaded correctly, it will just make a beautiful cast. I'm going to do it on the tarp so that it's a little slower and you can see what the line does. See how that line just laid out? You can do that with your rod and you can see that same action. Makes a nice cast. And then if you're fishing, you just let that sit to the water like that. So you're casting above the water and then you just let it sit. You don't want to cast into the water, it'll make a big splash. Scare the fish. All right, so you load it, it goes out. So when you're fly casting, keep the rod tip straight and then stop. And the momentum of the line will give you a loop. The kind of loop you're looking for is a tight loop like that. What you don't want is a great big wide loop. You want a kind of fairly tight loop like that, without crossing. If you drop your rod too far, you'll make a big wide loop. If you arc it too much, it makes a big wide loop. If you don't arc it enough, you'll get crossing loops, and your line will tangle on your line. So you're trying to keep your rod tip going straight, going straight, going straight as you accelerate, and then whip it forward and stop. So accelerate, 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 stop. Accelerate, 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 stop. And then what you got to do is let the line go all the way out before you bring it back. If the line is just part way out when you bring it back, it'll crack the whip and you'll lose your fly. So make sure the line goes all the way out, then you bring it back. All the way out, and then back. The more line you get, the longer you have to wait. you whip your line and it just gets tangled up. We're going to start, pretend you're on the stream and this rod is pointing straight up. If you have just a short amount of line, the weight of the line, which is what you're throwing back and forth, is the weight of the line. It will run down the rod and your fly will end up at the top. So always have at least a pole length worth of line plus your leader. And for casting, you want at least two pole lengths of line out plus your leader. To get started, if your line's in front of you, you can just do a roll cast. Just sort of flip it out there. And then once it's straight, when you pick it up off the water, don't do an arc. Pull it in a straight line, accelerating until you get just past straight up, and then you stop. So accelerate, stop. And then you let it drop a little bit, let it straighten out, and then accelerate and stop. Accelerate and stop. Accelerate and stop. When you're first learning, accelerate, stop, and just let it fall in the water behind you, if you can, or on the grass. And then accelerate, stop, just let it fall. You want to see that line laying out before you bring it back. Okay, a couple final thoughts. As you're casting with your practice line and your rod, be sure and look at your back cast. If you get something weird going on, you can adjust it. See, I've got too big of loops, or maybe too tight of loops, or I'm not letting enough time go out. You can adjust that almost immediately by watching both ends. And as you progress from 30, 40, 50 feet, as you start controlling your line and your loops, you can eventually get to where you can cast an entire line. And as you're casting longer lines, you can start doing what's called a double haul. And you just, instead of loading your rod just with your one hand, you're also pulling line to speed it up. And that will keep it off the ground. But don't worry about those things for now. Just watch your line, and as you see problems, either too tight of a loop or too open of a loop, you can adjust those, and that will help you.